Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Adoptees podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Monica Hall. Really looking forward to diving in here, Monica.
Me too.
Yay!
Yay.
So, Monica is an adoptee, but she's also a birth mother. And she's just back from the Cub, the Cub weekend. Was it Concerned United
Birth parents, yes.
Yeah, and there's adoptees there as well. And
correct.
There were some other people there that were are adoptees and birth mothers. What slang name did you give each other? Double something?
Oh, somebody said double threat. Double threat, like birth parent and adoptee. Double threat. One of the guys there, he was a husband of one of the birth mothers. Thought that was kind of funny. There was the whole constellation was there, all of them. We had adoptive parents, we had people that were there's all kinds of things that have come up now with the advent of DNA and finding out that our father that we thought was always our father isn't our father. So there's many layers there. It was all represented. It was fantastic, actually.
Yeah. So, listeners, Monica I laughed when you said double threat, right? Because she is the furthest thing away from a threat you could ever imagine, right? She's many people come on the show, and because I found them because they've written their memoirs, and Monica has written hers, but as of today's date, so we're recording this on the 18th of October 2023. The memoir is not out yet, but if you're listening a bit later on, then it probably is, and there will be a link in the show notes as soon as it's available. So I was looking. I've had a couple of chats with Monica in the last month. Great lady, and as I say, definitely no threat whatsoever. And on a website, you talk about your the memoir that you've written. It's now being edited, if I remember rightly from last time we spoke.
Right.
Yeah.
I should have it in my hot little hands in a couple of weeks.
Cool.
Completely final copy edit done. Yeah.
And it says on your website, it says, although my memoir tells the story of guilt, shame, and my troubled childhood, it's also about empowerment and courage, and how pain can come full circle to healing. Well, that's what it's all about, right? Healing, that process of healing. So that's kind of what we think is a good, nice, broad topic to dive into, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And before we hit record, you said you've been healing for years, 40 years. You see now that you are not your past.
Right.
And what did you say? You've been working. You were for some of these stages. You were working hard on your healing.
Yeah, for many years I was working very hard on my healing, and it takes ups and downs. But I don't work hard anymore. I think I've come to a place where trying is working hard, and now I'm just in this place of letting it come, and it does when you're ready. That's the thing. But when you're ready, I've surrendered a long time ago to all the bad stories and the bad ideas and the limiting beliefs and the cycle of bad thoughts, and I've learned how to do all that over the last number of years. The memoir part was just like the final curtain, almost, in the sense of putting a dot on where some of this trauma and pain came from. But throughout my life, I never really, and still today, don't blame my adoption or relinquishing a child, or even the abuse that happened in my adoptive home, or the addiction and all the problems and the bad relationships and all the the difficulties, those are wow, those are my biggest gift. I mean, that sounds really hard for somebody to hear that's going through all that crap right now. But on the other side, doing the work, it is my biggest gift, because without all those things, I wouldn't be this person. I would not be able to help others and show them how I've done it. That's, when I started writing my memoirs originally, my daughter, my 38-year-old daughter, the first baby I got to keep is what I call her, my golden child. She was leaving my house. She was pregnant with now 7-year-old grandson. And she said, "Mom, you should write a memoir." Like, what? That was never the words I thought would come out of her mouth. And she said, "Yeah, you're such a great storyteller. You've got such an interesting story. I mean, how you were adopted and how you gave a child up for adoption, and then you found your family, and then you reunited with Mary. And it's just such an interesting story. People will be fascinated." And I'm like, okay. To me, that was not interesting. And, to another adoptee that's lived that life or whatever, our stories are our stories. I don't have a yardstick to measure, anything by. It was kind of boring. What I wanted to do is I wanted to find out the other stuff, the stuff in between, like the childhood. And I had missing memories. I had reoccurring dreams. I had some things that I knew were missing that I'd repressed. And I'd been in therapy certainly many times over the years. I was in therapy, in really pretty intense therapy, the Courage to Heal Men and Women Survivors of Child Sexual Abuse, with a therapist in the 90s. I went through the whole workbook. I've done lots of healing work along the way. And so the memoir was really just dialing down to the things that I thought were my fault, because that's where I went. There must be something wrong with me. There must be something wrong with me to have had these experiences, especially with within my adoptive family. And I've known that on an intellectual level, of course, that's not the case, but on a heart level, an emotional level, self-esteem and self-worth level, there's been that problem of not feeling like there's something wrong with me. And I went through 2020, I went through a Zoom with a therapist and did EMDR. Took almost the whole year. I had 11 big T traumas, as she called them, like big T traumas, not like small T traumas, big T traumas. And I've known about them, absolutely. I've worked on them. I've, released them. I've come to acceptance and forgiveness. I've transmuted them, but I wanted to do another layer. And it was beneficial. And I've also, one of the things that I've really has helped me is looking and trying to treat myself like I would treat my child, or like a little niece or somebody that I just adored, like my little grandson. We were talking at the cub retreat, us women running into the bathroom to go pee. And, we were talking about how we hold it so that we don't, so that we can go further. I can do it later. I can do it later. I can do it later. Or I can eat later. I'll grab something later. But we wouldn't do that to our children. We would never treat our children like that. Honey, if you have to go right now. Let's go to the potty. If we need to eat, let's get some food. Go ahead. But we don't do that to ourselves. And oftentimes, not everybody, some people are really good at that. But that's been something I've needed to work on over the years, is treating myself as I would a child, somebody I loved.
So I was going to ask you what your opinion, what your definition of healing was. But I've come up with my own suggestion based on what you just said, right? So does healing mean to you seeing feeling, believing, getting in every part of your body that there's nothing wrong with you.
Right.
Does that sound like a
I think you've dialed down all the way down. Yeah, I think that's the core. The core is that I am not my thoughts. I'm not my experiences. I'm not my limited beliefs. I'm not my addictions. I'm not my troubles. I'm none of those things. And it's so interesting. I've had a lot of spiritual healers over the years. One is David Hawkins, and he says, we change the world not by what we say or do, but as a consequence of what we have become. And that is so beautiful. Like the change and the things that I want to do to help others, I can't teach if I haven't gotten there. And, it's always a work in progress. I have a long way to go. Hopefully I have another 20 years on the planet, or 30 years, 20 maybe. But think about this. As a little child, like a baby, like a little one, maybe a year or so, and he sees a ball out in the yard. Never seen a ball before. He doesn't have any judgment of that ball. It's not round. It's not red. It's not something that you can gamble with, gambling on football, baseball, sports. It's not something that can be thrown. It's not something that could hit you or hurt you. It's not something that your daddy could throw with you. It's not something that rolls. It's not something a dog will run and chase. It's absolutely perfect as it is. And I think that's part of the reason, and I'm not suggesting people do this, that I love psychedelics so much when I was a kid. I think it was my way of seeing things without any ego, and being able to just love that apple, like that apple in that bowl. I could look at it for hours. It wasn't red. It wasn't, chewy. It couldn't be eaten. It was just perfect the way it was. And what happens here on earth, life, whatever we call this, is that we get these layers and layers and layers of judgment about things, and how our mind perceives those experiences and what has happened, or what we've watched happen. And all those are layers that are put upon somebody. And this is just my perception, my belief. Anybody else, I don't know. I believe that people that come here with experiences such as we have, with trauma, with, which I hate that word, by the way, trauma and triggers. I hate that one too. But those are words that really, affect what's happened to us, being abandoned and having those wounds, and, maybe having addiction and having problems with spending or food or relationships, all of which I've had definitely problems with. All of those things, those can all be transmuted at the point of origin. And what you said is the point of origin. The point of origin is the core of who we really are. And so connecting to that core is the beginning of transmuting all that. Though I have transmuted I'm not this spiritual guru or anything, but I've only can explain what I've experienced. And I've done that through years of work. And actually a number of those things have been healed in the last 8 years that I've been working with, the writing. And I believe now that I've been just removing all those layers of judgment, all those layers that as children, when we saw that ball as perfect, has been clouded with layer of layer of layer. And I've been working on removing those layers so that I could get down. And there's times when I really, really love myself. And it's not Monica I'm loving. It's not that Monica Hall or that blonde woman or that mother or that adoptee or that birth mother or that employee or that homeowner. It's none of those things. It's that other part, that core, that center of who we really are, that is there. And I've seen glimpses of that, and I've felt glimpses of that, and I've heard glimpses of that. And they come, the more I've done this work, that I've shown other people how to do, that I hopefully I'll help they can show other people how to do, because that's how it works, is if we can heal some of those core issues and remove those layers, we can spread this and help others to achieve the same thing. A number of years ago, I stopped watching the news. Probably been, I don't know, it's been quite a while. I do see enough of it on my phone, but I stopped turning. I used to get up in the morning, do my makeup, turn on the news, and immediately I was angry. It's just right away. I'm pissed off. And I don't want my heart to be pissed off. I want my heart to be open, because the more anger I am and the more judgment I have, the more I will tilt and attract more of those experiences. And I don't want to do that. I want to attract love and joy and peace and healing and abundance and all those things that I was told, like when I was, I've heard, in fact, I dated a guy for 10 years. He would talk about being filthy rich. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? I mean, that's a limiting belief that he had, that if you're rich, you're filthy. So we have all these different layers of things that we've accumulated over our lifetime. And wow, I mean, I think it was, like I stopped drinking and using 40 years ago. It'll be 40 years in March. But there's been, so I got that recovery. And then I got the recovery during that period of time from my thoughts and my limiting beliefs and my judgments. And that's been the biggest one, is the judgment. Because when I'm judging you or that situation or that thing on the news or this, then that's a layer that's covering my heart. Now, it's not that I'm not informed, because I am informed, but I want to keep that heart open, because the more I could get angry about the things that happened to me, and I have 11 big T traumas. It's not like I don't have little things, right? But those happen. And this is going to sound really weird to some people, and probably they're not going to accept this, but for me, those things happen for me. And that's where I was able to transmute it so that it can be a benefit to others. So
when you were going through the list of the things that you are not, and maybe you didn't say it because you don't like the word, but you didn't say, I am not my trauma.
Yeah, I hate that word.
I hate that word.
It's one of those beliefs again. It's one of those layers, because I can get stuck on that trauma, that big T trauma, 11 big T traumas. Woo. I am not any of the things that I've experienced in my life. They're only experiences. They're not me. They have contributed to who I am today, but they are not me. And that's why I love, taking people through what I've, how I've gotten there, in that, and we attract what we are. If I'm thinking all the time about what problem I have, then I'm amplifying that problem, because I'm attracting more of that problem, more reasons to have that problem. And I've learned ways to let that pass, let that move by me. I can see that big T trauma thought, and then I can just watch it go. And then when it comes up again, I lean back. I replace that trauma with something else, that thought or that worry about work or what they think of me or money or health, all those things. I lean back and I watch it go, and it comes back. Depends on how big our ball is. Okay. So for instance, I had a very traumatic trauma, where I was betrayed about 10 years ago by someone I deeply trusted, someone I cared about. And it was, I was on the verge of losing everything, my home, everything. And I was betrayed, and it was very painful. And I knew, because of the work that I've been doing all my life, it seems like most of my life, is that if I entertained that, then what I worried about would happen. And so I really buckled down, in the sense of, rather than worrying about it and trying to figure it out, I took action, what I needed to do, and then I leaned away from the worry. So in the morning, as an example, I would sit in my bedroom. I have big windows and, bird feeder and all that out there. And I would sit and I would look out there, and because my heart was busted, it was broken. And I would look out there and I would just be grateful for just right now. My eyes could see the birds. There were flowers out on my deck right now, just right now. Everything was perfect right now. And then I'd get up and I'd go get my coffee in the morning. I, have a routine that I do, and it includes some of these practices that I've been using. And right away, as soon as I got my coffee, all of a sudden those cycling thoughts would come again, because they were an addiction. I was addicted to that thought, that limiting belief, that fear. I was addicted to it. And so once we let that ball go, it's going down the mountain and it is collecting debris, snow, rocks, branches. And the bigger it gets, the faster it goes, and the faster it goes, and the faster it goes. And then I cannot stop it, or stopping it is very difficult. And so I took these practices that I learned on how to stop the ball from rolling, or the big snowball from gaining speed and momentum, and then creating what I'm actually worrying about, letting that happen. And I swear, I had a number of, conversations with people about what was going on. And a few of my guy friends, like, there is no way that is going to get fixed for you. There is no way. It's just not possible. No way. And I kept doing this practice of what I'd been shown, and it all went away. It all went away. It worked out in the best possible way that I could never have created on my own thoughts. So these things that we learn, and this is the other thing, Simon, it takes courage. This takes courage. And it also takes a surrender at some level to be teachable, to say, yeah, I'm willing to try something else. I'm willing, I'll do anything. I can't stand feeling like this anymore. And so when we do that, then there's some hope. There's some space inside us, in our heart, in our mind, in our being, where we can recreate those things, and get down to the core of who we really are. And that is absolutely perfection. It's that beautiful child that looks out at that ball and sees beauty. And I don't know if I'll do it on the plane, on the planet this time around, but I'm full of gratitude. I'm full of gratitude for all of it. And that's crazy, right?
I'm not sure where to go next. Where do you want to take it next?
Oh, I don't know. We could go just about anywhere. I think that let's stick with the reframing of our past. So there's a lot of people that I've watched, and this is the difference too. There's a difference between judgment and compassion. So there's a transmutation that happened there. And I've watched lots of podcasts, or listened to podcasts, and read a lot of things from our community, our constellation, within the adoptee community. It's a lot of really, really wounded people. We all have wounds. Everybody has wounds. We're not unique in that. in the constellation, or being an adoptee or a birth parent or whatever, you know, abuse survivor, whatever those things are. But there's a lot of pain, and there's something that happened that I was, you know, that I worked through, where I now see those people. And if I'm doing the spiritual work, my perception changes. Like, I can go into, if I'm not doing the work and I'm not in the solution, and I walk into a store or somewhere and somebody is like a bag lady, or, you know, causing difficulties, or wearing something that is atrocious in my not so humble opinion, or whatever those things are, rather than, if I'm not in a good space, I see and I judge them, and I look at them with judgment. Oh, look at her. You know, that pride, that ego that I have, that's my biggest character defect is definitely my pride. But what happens is, I know that I'm spiritually fit when I look at those people that have these difficulties, whether it be somebody on the street, you know, begging for money or whatever, with compassion or judgment. There's that shift. So I can judge my spiritual condition based on how you look. That's where it is, how you look. If I'm looking at you with judgment and taking your, say, personal inventory of your maybe grosser handicaps or whatever it is, then I'm not okay. I've got work to do. And when I'm able to do the work, and that, I think that's the biggest thing, is I was able, by doing that work, the biggest part of that is I'm able to forgive myself. Because when it comes right down to it, the core of who I am, I didn't love her. I judged her. I judged her grosser handicaps, her character defects, her decisions over the world, you know, over her life. I judged all of it as if I was, you know, the be all and end all. And I think that that's the biggest thing, is if I can see you with compassion and your problems, then I can do that with myself.
So healing is about seeing who we are, not trying to change our feelings.
I wouldn't necessarily say try to change our feelings. Okay, because I don't, so I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg, the feeling or the thought. But I've learned to not believe everything I think. Because when I do, I'm using my own brain to try to fix something that's broken. That's not going to work. So
we can't think ourselves to healing.
We can't. The healing comes within. It doesn't come without. And we can't do it with a broken brain. So what I've had to do is I've had to have some mentoring, so to speak, or someone to show me a different way. And I've done that through, I mean, I've been in recovery for 40 years. So I've done that. I've picked up a lot through that. I've also had a number of teachers and people that, like David Hawkins is one of them. Fascinating man. There's been a number of them, and I've been able to, every time, like for instance, here's an example. Years ago, when Eckhart Tolle, however we pronounce his last name, came out with his book, I read it. I could not comprehend a freaking word of it. I bought the audio, driving to Los Angeles from Sacramento, could not comprehend a word of it. And then that situation happened that I was telling you about, where my heart was broken and I was betrayed. I heard every single word. Every single word in that book and every single thing that he said on that audio touched my heart, because it was open. So we have to be at a place of being teachable. And that's a place of surrender. Because if I believe all my feelings, and those, you know, we've got people that have had difficulty, especially us in the adoptee community. It's hard to find things to feel good about how we got here, and why am I like this, and why am I self-sabotaging, and why. If I start, if I give those feelings and those thoughts entertainment, they get bigger. So we need to have tools on how to not let that happen, and to transmute those feelings and that pain and those judgments and those thoughts to something that can actually be of service to us and to others. And so it's work. It's not something that we just, snap our fingers and go, yeah, I'm okay now. It's work, but not everybody's willing. There's people that are addicted to their feelings. And I've been there. We're addicted to our feelings. I'm addicted to feeling bad. I'm addicted to the problem. I'm addicted to why. And, so addictions come in many, many forms. And where is that? How is that serving you? What are you gaining from that? That's the thing. If we do this, work that I've done as an example, I'm able to see what the benefit, what I think I'm getting from that anger, that resentment, that feeling. What am I getting from that? Am I getting to be a victim? Am I getting to use that as an excuse for my other poor behaviors and decisions? How is that serving me? And how can I change that? How can I transmute that?
Yeah, you've used this word transmute a couple of times. So can you explain what that is within this context?
Transmute's sort of like alchemy, right? It's just taking something and moving it to something better. And as I've just explained all of those as in examples, it's seeing the ball, and I don't see a ball without judgment, of course, because I'm, a human that's had a lot of life experience, but I'm able to see situations in a completely different way than I did for many, many years. My perception, my glasses see something different now. It's like my brain is a different person. It sees things completely counter to what I used to. So that's a transmutation of my perceptions. And wow, heavy, right?
So, well, yeah, but this is where the good stuff is, right? So I've listened to a few of David Hawkins' books, including Power versus Force.
Ooh.
Yeah. So in this, you've read that one, have you read that one, Power versus
Yeah,
Force?
I've read all his books. I liked Healing and Recovery quite a bit. I think that was my favorite.
Okay, I don't know if I've come across that one.
And it's not about recovery from addictions necessarily. It's not about that kind of recovery. It's recovery from all this that we're discussing, all of it, right?
So what you sounded, so in Power versus Force, which I do mention that book quite a lot on the podcast. He's got this scale of human consciousness from 0 to 1,000, yeah. And so 0 is dead, and 1,000 is the great religious avatars, and shame is 20. The ones I can remember. Pride is 180. The United States Marine Corps apparently calibrates at 180. Unconditional love is 350, I think, or something like that. So what it sounded to me like, your definition of transmuting to me sounded like a shift in consciousness. Yeah,
That'd be exactly right. That'd be exactly right. So it's so interesting because when I've worked with people over the years, and I've taken them through what I did to help heal and to change my perception, transmute that, it is absolutely incredible to watch them on this scale. and watch them climb that scale and that consciousness shift. Holy cow. It is absolutely, and that for me is the biggest gift, watching them heal. It's not about me anymore. It's about you. And if I approach situations where what can I get, then I'm a vampire. I'm a spiritual vampire. I approach today's situations what I can give. And that's the shift, the transmutation that happens. I've been, and it doesn't mean that it can't change again. If I'm not doing the work, I revert back to that egocentric, pride-filled, self-centered narcissist that I am, through all those layers that I've accumulated. Or who knows, maybe I came here like that. This was my destiny. And see, that's the other thing that I think that we get caught up in. This happened to me. I'm a victim of this. And yes, this did happen to me. But maybe, what about, and this is my, again, my belief, this is just what I've come to through the years, is that the people that come here, and depending on what you believe in, if you believe in reincarnation or whatever, and what I happen to, I was raised Catholic, but like I said, it's been a really long journey for me on the spiritual journey. And I've studied everything. I've studied every type of dogma out there. I was a self-realization fellowship. I, Siddha yoga devotee. I've done it all, right? And so what I've come to realize is that this journey is something that was my destiny. Like, this is my destiny. My destiny, like, here's an example. I'm going to use my daughter as an example. She's sober now as well, and she's 38 now. But I met her father when I got sober, 40 years ago, and he's not done well with his life, and he's, actually he's in jail right now. But we divorced shortly after. I got pregnant with her, and got married because I didn't want another so-called bastard, on the planet. That would be. And so we did divorce when she was a year old. But fast forward, he wasn't in her life. I was a single mom. She's about 18, 19 maybe. And he moves back to town because he left when she was growing up. And they're sitting and they're having wine, and they're just talking about all the things that he never did for her. And I remember, because I'd always wanted my children to have family. It was so important to me. That was one of my things that I really wanted, because I didn't have that. And I had a very nuclear mother, father, cold place where nobody wanted to come visit. My brother, just the four of us. Where I come from, I'm part Métis, I'm Cree, Canadian, Indigenous, huge roots that extend everywhere. They're all rooted, family values. And so I wanted that for my children. And it just so happens I didn't know this at the time, but my daughter's father, he has 8 siblings in his family, and my son, they have different fathers, has 6 big families. And so I wanted my kids to have that connection to family that I never had. I think that was an intuitive thing. And so she didn't have that. And I used to bang around and, complain over and over when she was little that she, wasn't getting this. And I was moving it forward. That ball was rolling down the hill faster and faster. I'm angry. I'm resentful of this father of hers. And somebody said to me, one of my mentors at the time, she goes, "How do you know it's not Rebecca's destiny to miss her father?" And when she said that, it changed everything for me. And she was maybe 3 at the time. She's now 38. How do I know it's not my destiny to have been abused, to have been relinquished, to have been abandoned, to have been betrayed, to have been an addict, to have been, I can add many, many things to that. How do I know it's not my destiny to have experienced all those things so that I have a chance of transmuting those for maybe this lifetime, maybe for just helping others. I don't know. And it's none of my freaking business. That's the thing. We get so hooked up on what, where, why, and how. Oh, how. And as an adoptee, I found my biological family in 1980. That's the time before there was any, internet or anything. It was all letters and phone calls. There was hardly anybody to help. Alma helped me, Adoptee Liberty Movement Association. I did all those. And then I was reunited with my daughter when she turned 18 in 1991. Those were all things that I needed to do. And I have this innate, and maybe this is an adoptee thing, to want to know everything, to investigate every little nook and cranny. I couldn't meet my biological mother because she had passed away when I was 7 at 30. The only way I could get to know her was by asking people about her. Now, what about the adoptee that never gets to meet their biological mother, or they have secondary rejection, or they're, they find on DNA, and they find out that they're deceased and that their siblings don't believe that they're actually, they can't believe that their mother or father kept a secret. What all these stories, all these things that are so traumatic, and they are. How do we take those and shift them to a place of compassion and transmute that and not live in this anger and this resentment and the labels of there's something wrong with me? How do we do that? That's the work, because there is a lot of injustice out there. I just got back from the Cub retreat. I heard so much about these open adoptions with these young women that had, these are beautiful, successful, employed, lovely women who have lost their child and have been ghosted by the adoptive family when they were promised something else, and would probably not have relinquished had they have known this was going to happen. How do we transmute that stuff? Well, how it happens is by being willing to transmute it, to surrender, being done. I can't take this anymore. I heard one guy, he was there with his wife, lovely young couple. I mean, young compared to me, and they're in their 30s. And he would say, it's just killing her. It's killing me. It's killing us. It's killing us. Stop saying that. Oh, I love you to death. I love you to death. Stop saying that. What we put out in the world, in our thoughts, in our voice, everything, is more layers of beliefs and things that we might bring to fruition. We are more powerful than we believe, because inside of us, that core is oneness. It's so I don't believe, and I'm human and I make mistakes and I still revert back to, ego and all those things. But when I'm really in a beautiful place, I'm like the branch. The tree is the whole, that higher self, that higher consciousness, the one that I feel on the right side of my head. When a thought will come in, or it's not like a thought. It's more of it's hard to describe. It just comes, and it's in between thought that the answers happen. It's not in my mind. It's not in my mind that they happen. They come between thought. And so there's tools that I've used to get there. More meditation. I have a meditation practice, and it doesn't have to be an hour and a half. It doesn't have to be any of those things. But the practice is because the higher self is between thought. So we can forgive ourselves and not get stuck in the cycling thoughts, because we stop.
So can you put these two things together for me? You've got this you've got this, we're talking about identity here, yeah? And you've got the higher self, and you've got the judging ego self, and you've got the self that thinks that they're no good. How do those things all sit together?
Well, there's only one self, number one.
Okay.
That's the higher self.
Yeah.
The two other selves you were talking about are the same. They're actually lies, layers, and beliefs that aren't real. And I believe that I came here to transmute those. That's my job. And I believe that's all our jobs. Like people that come here with really, really difficult lives and difficult pain, and maybe addicts and adoptees, or, you know, people that you see that have horrific lives. Man, what a brave soul they are. I came here with all this stuff to transmute because I wanted to be closer to that higher self. I've always loved having my hair on fire. I like taking drugs. I like doing acid. When I was a kid, I loved breaking into houses, made me feel good. I liked riding in stolen cars. I liked anything that made me feel. I like jumping out of airplanes. I like driving super fast. I like things that make me feel. And I believe that that wanting to feel is to feel the self. That's what I want, is I want that. That's what I've been craving all my life here, is to feel the self, to be that, to be in the presence of that real self that I am, the core of who I am. And I've tried it with shortcuts all my life. I've tried it with all those things I just talked about.
So the higher self has been hidden.
The higher self is never, it's always there. It's always there. We've just layered it up with all these life experiences, all these experiences we come to, you know, here on planet Earth, the things that we wanted to do, the things that we wanted to experience, our destiny. And we get to choose how we want to navigate through that. And on the other side, I mean, this is, you know, there was a period of time where I would see a homeless man on the corner, you know, just a mess, you know, pants wet, you know, begging for money, looking for drugs or alcohol, or, you know, stealing or whatever those things are. And I used to look at those people and say, wow, that's gross. He should do something different with his life. What if he's doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing with his life? What if that was his destiny? What if he wanted to experience that? So on the other side, there's something different, or the next time he comes here, if that's what you believe. How do I know that that's not exactly what's supposed to be? And that shifted my judgment to compassion. Whoa, whoa, look at you. Look at you, how brave you were to choose this. How brave I am to have chosen this. How brave you are to have chosen these situations that caused us to become a place of wanting to make a difference. And you are with your podcast. This is an amazing podcast. It's the healing podcast. It's not the victim podcast, the angry podcast where we get to keep cycling in all this.
And there can't be anything wrong with the higher self, right?
No. No. Is that a question?
Well, I'm just trying to put the two things. I'm trying to glue the stuff.
So if we come here as perfection, that baby that looks at that ball and sees absolute wonder, and then we have, so that's beauty, that's perfection, it's innocence, there's no layers. There's no trauma. Maybe there has been, but they don't know it yet. They just see this ball with wonder. And then we have all these experiences and the limiting beliefs and all these things that happen. And we just want to get back to that baby. Because that's what we've always been, is perfect. We're the branches of this tree.
So the doing things are just to help you see things, see that.
What do you mean by doing things?
Well, the you've described lots of doing things. So good doing things like meditation, and bad doing things like driving very fast. Obviously I'm laying some guilt and judgment on there, but all those actions, like forget about me judging them good or bad or anything like that, right? That's not in line with this conversation, is it, right? But all those doing things are really means to an end, and the end to which you're moving is to see your higher self.
Every single thing, this is my belief. This is what I've come to. Every single thing, good, bad, sad, or glad, anything, is always a means to knowing our higher self. And I mean, the higher self, you could call it God. You could put any label you want on it. But the universe or divine, whatever it is, universal intelligence, higher self, God, consciousness, all those labels, whatever it is, either it's everything or it's nothing. There's no halfway. You're either pregnant or not pregnant. There is either, God is either everything or God is nothing. If you believe that there is something that's out there that's bigger than you, then it's got to be everything, or it's got to be nothing. Where do you want to be? What camp do you want to be in? I choose to believe that God is everything, that the universe, the divine intelligence, that little thing that comes in between thought, those intuitive thoughts, or when I'm speaking and all of a sudden, I mean, somebody will tell me I've said something. I'm like, I don't remember saying that. Well, it wasn't me talking. It wasn't Monica and her ego talking. It was that higher self talking.
So can the higher self be wounded?
No. No. The layer.
Why are we all so bothered then?
Pardon me?
Why are we all so bothered?
Because we're working through our crap. All those layers.
Well,
all those
surely
wanted to experience.
Surely we're also bothered because we've got it's a case of mistaken identity. If the higher self can't, if the higher self can't be wounded, and I'm in that camp, right? I'm fully with you on the higher self camp. Then the challenge, the thing that we've got wrong is a case of mistaken identity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's absolutely correct. And that identity is we need to peel back those layers to get back to that real core identity.
Yeah.
I could put all kinds of labels on myself, but in the scheme of the big picture, I'm just this bubble of love. I mean, to me, when I'm having a spiritual experience, and I've had a number of them, and they've always come from a deep place of surrender, of absolute terror and fear that's so deep that I have nowhere else to go than surrender. And I've had a number of those. And it's, I don't know why, I don't know what makes me different than that. Maybe I've just had some bad pain in my life. I don't know. But I believe that I came here to experience those things, to be able to transmute them and to forgive myself and show others how I've done that.
Is there plenty about this in the book?
No, none of this is in the book.
Okay, that's the second book though.
Maybe. I in my book is my story. It reads like a novel. It's my story. And it does come, and as seeing the story, you can come to your own conclusions, but clearly there's a change and there's a shift and there's twists and turns. And I mean, there's things that I experienced or found out or uncovered or discovered in the last 8 years writing this. I've been back and forth to Canada and Alaska, where I grew up during the oil boom years, the crazy years, and Canada, where I was relinquished, and California here, where I've lived since 1974. All this investigation, having to know all that stuff that we want to know. And I think the difference is now I did the deep work, especially I was raped as a virgin and horribly shamed, and kept that a secret. And it's interesting how these layers, and this is just my experience for this, but there's others, everybody's had different experiences, where I blamed myself for that. And it wasn't until I was 60 and started writing this chapter, and it took about a year to be able to see that it wasn't my fault. And to come to a place where I could put the anger where it belonged rather than on me. So, and the bottom line is that this was my journey. And it's just part of it. It's part of all of it. And it's like, it didn't happen till I was 60. I've been living with that since I was 15. But it was part of what I was supposed to experience, to uncover more of the layers and the self and have the compassion. I wrote something on my blog. I post essays and I've been doing it since I started writing my memoir. I think it was just having little valve releases. You got to release the valve, a little bit of pain, or the release it just. And I wrote a piece on the inner child work that I was doing, and being able to forgive that small self. I have pictures around of me in different ages, like 3 and 12 and 14, and this wounded girl that is so beautiful. I had such low self-worth for years, low self-esteem, and I had such survival strategies. I was violent, and I did all these things that I was just trying to heal and survive. I was trying to survive, all these things. And I look at that beautiful young girl and I think, wow, she was beautiful. She was beautiful. She's just doing the best she could with what she had to work with. And she couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. She couldn't see that someday she would have self-worth, self-esteem, that she would be able to impart that for others and help others heal. She never saw any of those things, and she wasn't supposed to. Some things we're not supposed to know. And some of those things are none of my dang business. Like, I did want to heal, but all the hows and whys, I've gone back and forth. Like, why did my mother relinquish me? What if she didn't relinquish me? What would have happened? And she died at 7. Would I have been sent to the UK, to Wales with my half siblings? Would I have gone with my birth father and his wife, who was jealous of my mother? What would that have looked like? What if I'd been able to keep my baby like my half sisters did when they got knocked up as teenagers? What if I could have raised my son, my daughter, like my sister raised her son, and she had her own, business cleaning houses with a bunch of women working for her? What if I could have done that? What if, what if, what if, what if, what if, what if? I could what if myself into being angry again.
Yeah. What if you didn't?
Right. What if?
So, quick question. It wasn't Wrexham you would have ended up in Wales, was it?
I don't know. I don't remember. It was a little tiny little country farm.
Village, yeah. Okay. I was born in Wrexham, which is in North Wales. That would have been funny, wouldn't
Oh my.
it?
I'll text my sister and ask her. I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Yeah. So I heard something that stopped me in my tracks this morning, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I heard it on an audio book this morning, and I thought I think you might like it. Only the ego can reject reality.
Right. And that's what we are.
No, the ego, yeah, this is the higher self. The higher self is going to accept everything, right?
Right. Without judgment, with love, compassion. There's a little story I'll tell you really quick. I was in Michigan. I was speaking before, I don't know, a couple hundred people, and I was telling my story, this healing journey. And my daughters, the one I relinquished for adoption and the one I got to keep, were both in the audience. And I was so overcome with gratitude, looking at my two adult, beautiful, healed, whole daughters in the audience with all these people, most of them which were strangers that came to hear me speak. And as I was told that I needed to stop at exactly 8:25 on the nose, right? Strict 8:25. And so I'm standing up there and I'm just speaking. And while I'm speaking, I have this idea of the effect that I'm having on the audience and myself. And there were like three parts of me there in attendance. There was the me who was speaking. There was the me that was aware of me speaking. So I was aware that I was speaking. I was watching myself speak. And then there was the younger me, the 15-year-old girl who was in absolute tears. And she was watching this miracle of this full circle. And she was saying, if only I could have seen this. If only I could have seen this, it would save me so much pain. And at the time, it was all three of these parts of me. And in the beginning, my daughter that I relinquished, she introduced me. This is Monica. I owe her my life for a number of reasons. Well, here's Monica. And so nobody really knew that any of the story, except just maybe a handful of people. And at the very end, I said, and the woman who introduced me tonight is the daughter I gave up for adoption all those years ago. And there was this audible gasp, like gasp from the audience.
Yeah.
And I looked over at the clock and it was exactly 8:25. Now, that was not me. That was not me. I didn't one time look at the clock for that hour talk. Not once. And that was not me, that young girl who was crying. That young girl wasn't supposed to have seen the ending. That would have been cheating to see the ending and this beautiful result of all that happened there. My daughters were holding hands and looking tearfully and crying. Half the audience was in tears. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And one last note on that, while I was speaking, because I told my daughter when we were reunited that it was a date rape when she was 18. And I had never really fully accepted that as a rape. I've always felt guilty when I said rape, and I very rarely said it. I usually said date rape. And I hadn't yet, gotten to the point that I wasn't yet writing my book. It was a couple of years earlier. And so about a month later, she's in Michigan, I'm in Sacramento, I'm sitting in my bed with my laptop writing, and she FaceTimes me. And she says, Monica, I have a question for you. I was talking to my therapist, and you said something. You called it a rape, not a date rape. Can you tell me what happened? And I went, whoa. Because I remember when I was saying it, when I was speaking, I was watching myself speak. And when I said rape, I had the thought of, wow, that seems so violent to say in front of all these people and in front of my daughter. It was that observing myself, my higher self that was saying the truth. And that was the beginning of working through that. I went to my mom's, and I finally told her, because I kept it a secret, what happened. And she sat down with me and she looked me, now you get this straight. This was not your fault. And she broke down how he had basically groomed me, and what he had said, and all these things to get me to go with him, and all this. And I could see it from an adult perspective. And I clung to that. And then another couple of years, and the next year I start writing my memoir, I'm back to feeling guilty again, because all those years I felt guilt. And so there was this thing I did where I had to record my mom's voice and listen to her, and my friends all walked me through it from an adult perspective. And it took almost a year. I would listen to the recordings like I did with parenting for my daughter, so my daughter wouldn't grow up with raging and the things that I grew up with, where I could be a parent that was more of love and logic. I was able to record things, and I'd hear them over and over and over again, because I had to reprogram my brain. So that's a great example of the higher self. All three of us there. Now I've had a couple of those crazy experiences.
Fantastic. Looking forward to reading the book.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to birthing that thing. It's hopefully March. I'll be presenting, I believe, at Tangling Our Roots, which is a summit in Denver for the constellation adoptees and such. So I hope to have it available by then. I think it's going to really help people. I think it's really going to help.
I'm sure it will. Thanks so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. This is so delightful to have this conversation. So delightful.
Thank you, listeners.
And I'm open to helping people in the community. Yeah.
So as always, listeners, check out the show notes, and if you want to get in touch with Monica, then I'm sure she'd be delighted to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Lots of love, everybody. Bye-bye.